Quotes about God. Life without God is like an unsharpened pencil. It has no point. Billy Graham. There is a communion with God that asks for nothing, yet asks for everything. George MacDonald. We turn to God for help when our foundations are shaking, only to learn that it is God shaking them. Charles West. Almighty God, man, in portraying thy character, has dipped his pen into the darkest tints of his own heart. George Rogers, 1839. I implore you in God's name not to think of him as hard to please, but rather as generous beyond all that you can ask or think. Abbé de Tourville. Father in heaven, when the thought of thee wakes in our hearts, let it not awaken like a frightened bird that flies about in dismay, but like a child waking from its sleep with a heavenly smile. Kierkegaard. It is better to have no opinion of God at all than such as one as is unworthy of him, for the one is only unbelief, the other is contempt. Plutarch. The purposes of God point to one simple end, that we should be as he is, think the same thoughts, mean the same things, possess the same blessedness. George MacDonald. There is only one reality. That reality is God. The soul of man must contact God, and unless the spirit of man is truly joined to God, there is no such thing as real Christian manifestation. John G. Lake. Seek to cultivate a buoyant, joyous sense of the crowded kindnesses of God in your daily life. Alexander Maclaren. At any rate, I am convinced that he, God, does not play dice. Albert Einstein. Man can certainly flee from God, but he cannot escape him. He can certainly hate God and be hateful to God, but he cannot change into its opposite the eternal love of God, which triumphs even in his hate. Karl Barth. Let a man think and care ever so little about God. He does not therefore exist without God. God is here with him, upholding, warming, delighting, teaching him, making life a good thing to him. God gives him himself, though the man knows it not. George MacDonald. An impersonal God, well and good, a subjective God of beauty, truth, and goodness inside our own heads. Better still, a formless life force surging through us, a vast power which we can tap. Best of all, but God himself, alive, pulling at the other end of the cord, perhaps approaching an infinite speed, the hunter, king, husband. That is quite another matter. There comes a moment when the children who have been playing at burglars hush suddenly. Was that a real footstep in the hall? There comes a moment when people who have been dabbling in religion, man's search for God, suddenly draw back, supposing we really found him. We never meant it to come to that. Worse still, supposing he had found us. C.S. Lewis. I want atheism to be true and am made uneasy by the fact that some of the most intelligent and well-informed people I know are religious believers. It isn't just that I don't believe in God, and naturally I hope that I'm right in my belief. It's that I hope there is no God. I don't want there to be a God. I don't want the universe to be like that. Thomas Nagel. God is not who you think he is who he says he is. Clarice Fluitt. Since God created man in his own image, how often has man endeavored to render a similar service to God? Voltaire. More knowledge of God leads to a higher form of worship. Unknown. It is much more possible for the sun to give out darkness than for God to do or be, or give out anything but blessing and goodness. William Law. From the moment a creature becomes aware of God and of itself as self, the terrible alternative of choosing God or self for the center is open to it. C.S. Lewis. Most people want to serve God, but only in an advisory capacity. Unknown. You must not lose confidence in God because you lost confidence in your pastor. If our confidence in God had to depend upon our confidence in any human person, we would be on shifting sand. Francis Schaeffer. God creates out of nothing. Wonderful, you say. Yes, to be sure, but he does what is still more wonderful. He makes saints out of sinners. Kierkegaard. The knowledge of God is very far from the love of him. Blaise Pascal. There have been men before now who got so interested in proving the existence of God that they came to care nothing for God himself. C.S. Lewis. I am so tried by the things said about God. I understand God's patience with the wicked, but I do wonder how he can be so patient with the pious. George MacDonald. God is a comedian playing to an audience too afraid to laugh. Voltaire, God makes the world not out of necessity, but by a divine whim, and the world he makes is a whimsically romantic place. We're all crazy about each other because we're made in the image of someone who's been crazy about us. Robert Farrar Capon. When God speaks, he speaks so loudly that all the voices of the world seem dumb. And yet when God speaks, he speaks so softly that no one hears the whisper but yourself. Henry Drummond. Drummed into me from an early age was the fact that God was the Father, which led to my thinking of God as somebody home only at the weekends. Thinking about God as a father also meant thinking of him as a distant sort, one who wasn't to be disturbed because he was busy, one who is concerned with rules and punishments, and one having a short temper. Regina Barreca. You believe the devil is bigger than God. Your God is about 1.5 inches high, and the devil is 1.5 feet high. What you need to do is to change gods and change gods quickly. John G. Lake. That God will forgive may indeed be established as the first and fundamental truth of religion. For though the knowledge of his existence is the origin of philosophy, yet without the belief of his mercy, it would have little influence upon our moral conduct. There could be no prospect of enjoying the protection or regard of him whom the least deviation from rectitude made inexorable forever. And every man would naturally withdraw his thoughts from the contemplation of a creator whom he must consider as a governor too pure to be pleased and too severe to be pacified, as an enemy infinitely wise and infinitely powerful, whom he could neither deceive, escape, nor resist. Samuel Johnson. Nothing can alter the character of God. In the course of a human life, tastes and outlook and temper may change radically. A kind, equable man may turn bitter and crotchety. A man of goodwill may grow cynical and callous. But nothing of this sort happens to the Creator. He never becomes less truthful or merciful or just or good than he used to be. J.I. Packer. As long as you are proud, you cannot know God. A proud man is always looking down on things and people. And of course, as long as you are looking down, you cannot see something that is above you. C.S. Lewis. God is not proud. He will have us even though we have shown that we prefer everything else to him. C.S. Lewis.